What's up, everyone? Lord Ryujin here again. Now, I was going to talk about my thoughts on Killer Instinct this week because I heard some good things about it. But you know what? You probably have already heard all about what Killer Instinct is doing, and I think that it's a good thing, and that's really the whole point of the narration. So, what I'm going to talk about this week instead, because I think that it needed to be addressed, was what is Nintendo's issue with this, the Nintendo 2DS. Now, you can already see the picture of it that I posted with this video. I've got a couple of problems with it, and you can probably take a doggone good guess. And if you can't take a good guess, I'm going to pretty much spell it out for you pretty darn good. And it's three primary problems with it, just like the 3DS. Now, my first problem is the fact that it doesn't fold. I mean, what the crap? The 3DS is designed to be like the DS. And the whole point of it was that it was supposed to be designed to fold to protect the screens. Now it doesn't fold anymore. You know? It doesn't fold anymore, which to me just basically means you're going to scratch up those screens like a sucker. Which is fine and dandy, I guess, for little kids and for parents, because you know it's only going to be $130, and so for those people out there that they want to play the 3DS games, but not function with them in 3D, you can easily just be like, okay. But see, that's what my second problem is: lack of 3D. The whole purpose of naming it the Nintendo 3DS was so that it would be in 3D. When you take away the 3D, you might as well just call it the DS2. And if you were going to name it the DS2, then you should have just called it the DS2 or something else and not have included the 3D to begin with. The fact that you're backpedaling is kind of dumb. I understand why you're trying to market it to children of a younger age because the 3D is limited. But here's the thing, you lock the 3D. I have a 6-year-old son, and he plays my 3DS. I just simply move the nub down to it's in 2D mode. It's that simple. There was no need to create another system that doesn't do the 3D. All of them don't do the 3D. You have a problem seeing it in 3D? Shut it off! The whole point of creating, it's a dumb, stupid move. Oh my goodness, this is the stupidest thing Nintendo has done since the Game Boy Mini. And that thing was crap. It was small, you couldn't really play it. Great, it's customizable off its faceplates, but who gives a shit? You can lose it in 5 minutes by setting it down on the floor. Oh, and then see, here's the problem. It's going to add even more confusion. Just like with the Wii and the Wii U. People can kind of get the point of, hey, it's a Wii U, so the Wii U games work on the Wii U. Now you've done confused people. Do the 3DS games work with 2D or other 2DS games now? And blah, you're going to cause more confusion, Nintendo. This is a dumb move. And I'm sorry, but I am a fan of most of the stuff that you do. I really am, you know? I really like the fact that you oftentimes go and like, it looks like the L and the R buttons are bigger, like they are on the Wii U. So I'm a big fan of things like that, and if you got a good battery life on it, which I don't know about the battery life on it, then it's probably a good idea. It's also got a home button on the bottom, very similar to, it's got a home button on the bottom, very similar to what it's designed to be very similar to a Wii U gamepad. I can tell by looking at it. It's got the same kind of, it goes in at the bottom, it's up at the top kind of thing going for it. And it's got a home button on the bottom screen, so it's You know, it's also got start and select right below the buttons, just like the Wii U gamepad does. So, kind of a good thing, but kind of a bad thing, because to me, you're sending mixed signals. You just came out with the Nintendo 3DS XL, now you're coming out with the Nintendo 2DS, like you're trying to tell people that the 3D was a bad idea, which it wasn't. It showed depth, and it showed realism. I can't tell you how many times I played a game like Luigi's Mansion, and it looked okay in 2D, but then I play it in 3D, or I play Resident Evil Revelations in 3D, and the difference was stunning to me. Now, I'm just that kind of person. If you're the kind of person like my wife, and the 3D hurts your eyes, you lock it. You move the bar down to where, you know, it goes from 3D to 2D, or you simply lock it within the system settings to where it no longer shows the 3D effect. Done. There was no point, at least to me, in coming out with a 2DS. Now, on to the final point, the final negative point that I have. And that is, it looks like dog shit. It really does. It looks like crap. You can tell by the picture that I have posted up here. It looks like crap. I mean, first of all, I have gotten adjusted to having the D-pad, circle pad, and buttons near the bottom screen. Now you're going to move them up at the top? Why would you do that? If you're going to use the touch screen as its primary thing for most games, like Resident Evil Revelations, being able to look around and being able to, you know, to reload weapons and switch between stuff by simply tapping the screen, having it far away from your fingers is the last thing that you want to do. That's just my opinion. Something that made the DS work was the fact that the touchscreen was close to the buttons. So when you tried to play a game like Star Fox, for example, your fingers were already right there by the D-pad, and you could just simply tap the screen to drop a bomb, or to look around. Or in Metroid Prime Hunters, if you set it to use the face buttons and the D-pad, then you could just as easily go and, you know, tap the touchscreen since it's right there in the corner and go into morph ball mode. It made it easy. The fact that you basically moved it, to me, is off. I mean, yeah, sure, I kind of get why you did it. You know, the Wii, you're trying to really push on the Wii U. You came up with a system that has a similar look to the Wii U gamepad, which leads me to one of the good points. Maybe now they're going to try and start doing some Wii U 3DS interconnectivity, because if they're going to have it look like the tablet, I mean, you can see from the side picture here that it looks like the R button is a little concave, like it's towards the back a little bit. So if they're going to make it to where it's going to look like a Wii U gamepad, maybe they'll finally have it work with the Wii U a little bit more. Maybe you can offshoot some games. You know, I've already suggested a lot of ideas to many of my videos about what I want Nintendo to do with 3DS and Wii U interconnectivity. I'm not going to go into that again. The point of the matter, the point of this whole video, and the point of my rant is that this is a stupid idea. This is probably the stupidest idea I've seen from Nintendo ever. I want to repeat that, okay, because I love the Virtual Boy, and I know that there are a lot of people that they don't like it, but even I saw the point to the Virtual Boy. I do not, and I'm sorry if this is, if you're one of the people out there that you look at this and you think this is a good idea, but I'm not one of them. I'm not one of them. I look at this and I think this is pointless. You already have a Nintendo 3DS model that does everything that the 2DS can do. You know, it has L and R, it has, you know, the start button, it has the face buttons right there. You know, it already has all of that. The only difference is that the top screen went up. The top screen went to the top. Now, if you called this the Nintendo 3DS U, you would confuse the hell out of people. So I guess I understand the point of making it look like a Wii U gamepad and calling it the 2DS, because you're trying to make make it so that people understand this is a 3DS with 2D instead of 3D. But I just don't agree with that. The whole point of the 3DS coming out was that it did 3D. And you even set it up to where you gave people the option to cut it off with the 3D slider. So completely removing it is basically saying there's no point in the 3D. It adds no depth. It adds no value to the system, and we were wrong, and now we're going to backpedal. And you should not do that, because the 3DS was a good idea. I still stand up to the 3DS. It's their best console. Not only does the circle pad make the DS games work so much better. I mean, seriously, try playing Metroid Prime with that thing. Metroid Prime Hunters using the slider pad. It just works so much better, at least to me. And the 3D for games like Luigi's Mansion, Resident Evil Revelations, you know, even in games like Resident Evil Revelations and stuff like that, really makes it work. Kid Icarus Uprising really makes it work. Now, certain games like Mario Kart 7, yeah, you don't really need it. It doesn't really add much to it. I get that. But see, here's the thing. Out of all the games, only your 3DS games use it. You know? I mean, so far you have virtual console games on there that don't use the 3D, and you have virtual console, you know, and you have DSiWare games and all that stuff. You don't really have a lot of games that are using the 3D. And if the 3D affects your eyes, cut it off. There was no point, at least to me, coming out with the Nintendo 2DS. Now, as usual, people, I'm gonna hold my reservations until I actually get my hands on one, because I thought that I was not going to be a big fan of the Nintendo 3DS XL. Let me tell you. But then I actually held one and I saw the purpose of it. I'm like, not only is the screen bigger, you know, not only is the screen bigger, but it folds, it's got a matte finish, all that stuff. This looks like it's basically the same thing. It looks like it's going to be a Wii U gamepad with 2 screens. Which to me, honestly, is just pointless. I already have a 3DS, and even though it's broken and I'm going to upgrade to a 3DS XL, it still does the same thing. I cut the 3D off on the 3DS, and it's a 2DS. Boom. I don't have to spend any extra money. And like I said, just based upon how it looks, it really looks like where the buttons are located is going to be a nuisance, because I'm used to having them close to the bottom screen and then quickly moving my thumb over to do something with the touch screen. Like if I need to switch to a different view on the map on Mario Kart or something, or if I need to, you know, quickly, you know, switch a weapon in Resident Evil or something like that, my fingers are already right there by the bottom screen, so it makes it easier. You know, and I understand that you can do all that without having to touch the bottom screen, but that is going into a completely different rant about why the bottom screen is going to start becoming kind of useless. But honestly, and here's another good point, and this is probably what I'm going to end my rant with. One of the good points is that the hinge can no longer break, because that was one of the biggest problems that plagued both the DS and the 3DS. And all their offspring, you know, the DSi, the DSi XL, that problem is gone, because that's what's wrong with my 3DS. The hinge is broken to where I cannot open up the system all the way. I can only open it up at a 90-degree angle, and playing games on it in that manner is extremely frustrating. And I've known people whose DSs have done that. You know, the hinge, whatever, the hinge connector broke. That problem is gone. So I'm glad. But to me, if they had done this and just simply said this is the 3DSi, just kept the 3D, kept everything about it, just changed its form a little bit, I would have been on board. I would have been on board with it, because, you know, it was like, hey, you know, keep the buttons down at the bottom now and no longer. I mean, I understand the reason why. You want to hold it more like a Wii U gamepad, and I kind of see the positives of it, but make sure that you sound off on what you think about it, because while I see the positives of it, I see more negatives to it. I think that this is kind of crappy. The whole point to me, at least, of having a 3DS was the fact that I could fold the screens and protect them. To whether I was carrying them in my pocket or whether I was carrying it in a backpack, I knew that when I dropped it, it wasn't going to scratch the screens. And the screens being scratched was going to be the least of my issues. Now, the fact that both the screens are there, you got nothing to cover them up with, it makes me a little bit concerned about what's going to happen to these screens when they get it, when you give it to a 5 or a 6-year-old. Like I said, people, I kind of like it. It looks similar to a Wii U gamepad. I think that that's really neat. I really think that's going to help people. Like if they hold it and they really get amped to it, then they hold a Wii U controller, they kind of put 2 to 2 together and they realize, holy crap. But to me, it's too little too late. You just came out with a 3DS XL. You kind of been pushing the 3D on people, and to me it just kind of defeats the purpose when you then backtrack and say, well, this is a 3DS without the 3D. That's just like saying, oh, here's a Wii U gamepad without the touchscreen. We made this whole argument about how the gamepad is going to be revolutionary with this touchscreen, and oh, we changed our mind, now we're going to get rid of it and just come out with a regular controller. That kind of defeats the whole purpose of the Wii U and the whole presentation that you made to it. That's my opinion. When you came out with the 3DS, you were talking about how the 3D really showed off depth and stuff like that, and I agree. Having played games like Super Mario 3D Land and things like that, where the 3D really does help you decipher distances and things like that, I totally agree. But on the other end of the spectrum, I kind of get why this is going this route. I think it's really going to be a family pusher. I mean, the price, $130, really cheap, especially when you want to give it to like a responsible 7 or 8-year-old, and you don't want to have to worry about going into the system and locking the 3D, or worrying about your kid figuring out how to unlock the 3D, which I don't really see why it's that big of a deal. So in a way I kind of get it, but in another way I think that, it's kind of dumb. If you made both screens the same size, maybe. If you had, I don't know, I'll have to see the size of it. If it's got the same screen size as the 3DS XL, then maybe. And right now that's what it looks like. It looks like it has the same screen size as the 3DS XL. But we'll have to really see. But make sure that you sound off on your opinion. I know that I've said this. I've been kind of going around in a circle because I keep looking at this. And I keep, I'm so in the middle. Like, I look at it and I see, well, it does this. And so it's good for doing this. But then I look at it and I'm like, but that is so dumb. Why would you put the button? I don't know. That's my rant for now, guys. I'm sorry that I've taken so long with this. I just had to share this. Anything else I was going to talk about this week doesn't even matter. Because to me, this is a dumb move. I mean, it's as dumb as when they came out with the Game Boy Micro. That was a pretty stupid thing. Like, you already had the Game Boy Advance SP. You had, the good model. You had the rechargeable battery. It folded, so the screen was protected. It was very portable. It also worked with all the old school Game Boy games. And you come off the Micro and it doesn't even do that. It doesn't do any of that. It doesn't, the screen is very small, so you can hardly see what you're doing. The system itself is small, so you can hardly, it's very hard to use. The battery life on it, from what I understand, was ridiculous. It didn't have any backwards compatibility. It couldn't even fold to protect the screen. I mean, it was kind of a dumb move. The DS was a great system. It only improved itself more and more and more as it went on, and it seems like the 3DS is not. I mean, all you did was you made a bigger model, and now you just made it to where the 3D's gone. What are you going to do next? And I think that's going to be the topic of my next system. The topic of my next video is what I think Nintendo is going to do next with their next portable, because I feel like it's right around the corner, and I can explain all of that when I do that rant, but that's another time, people. I don't want to drag this out any further. Thanks for listening this week. I hope that you enjoy it. Make sure that you like, subscribe if you did, and make sure that you suggest topics for a future video. You know, shoot them my way through a private message, leave them in a comment, and if it's something that I like and I think is worth talking about, I will talk about it and give you a shout out for it. Otherwise, guys, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.